Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Eruvin. We are up to Perek Vav, Mishnah Vav. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilun Nishmat, Neria ben Svetlana, Ranbayev, Neriyahu ben Burcha Yisraelov, Menuchatam Began Eden, Amen. Each separate household in the courtyard must contribute bread toward the Eruv. The Mishnah discusses when multiple households in a single building are considered one household, so that one bread suffices for them all, and when they are considered separate households, making it necessary for each one to contribute its own bread. Chamesh chavurot sheshavtu bitraklin echad. 5 groups of people spent Shabbat in a large hall, separated from each other by low partitions, which the Rav explains, partitions that did not reach the ceiling. Whoever can see in the art school elucidated diagram that's brought down in this Mishnah, we'll see how it's illustrated. Each of these areas has its own door to the courtyard. Other houses share the courtyard as well, and therefore the hall had to join in a eruv with the other houses. The question is whether the residents of the hall need to contribute one bread or 5 breads, one for each group. Bet Shammai omrim eruv lechol chavura v'chavura. Bet Shammai say a separate eruv contribution must be made by each group because the partitions separate them into independent households. Bet Hillel omrim eruv echad lechulan. But Bet Hillel say one eruv contribution suffices for them all, because they are considered one large household. Since the partitions do not reach the ceiling, they are not enough to separate the areas into independent households. Umodim bizman shemiktzatan shiruin b'chadarim o ba'aliyot. However, Bet Hillel agree that if some of them are living in separate rooms or upper stories of the building, shen tzrichin eruv lechol chavura v'chavura, that each group must contribute separately to the eruv because they are independent households. Since they are completely separate, each group is considered its own household. And Rav explains this would also be true for the hall itself. If it was separated into completely separate areas by tall partitions that reach the ceiling, then each area is considered its own household and must contribute separately to the eruv. And that is then of Mishnah Vav. We begin now Mishnah Zayin. People who sleep in separate homes within one courtyard but eat regularly in someone else's home in that courtyard, for example in their father's home, are all considered part of that person's household and do not have to join on their own in the eruv, according to the opinion of the Amora Rav in Masechet Eruvin, page 72a and b. Now, this Mishnah discusses the law for people who merely take food from this person but eat it in their own homes. Ha'achin ha'shutafim, brothers or partners working together for someone in the courtyard, shayu ochlin shulchan avihem, who eat, meaning they receive their food at their father's or employer's table, but eat it in their own homes. And the commentators explain partners and their employer have the same rules as sons and their father. Wherever we speak of sons and their father, it should be understood that the same applies to partners and their employer. Vishenim bevatehem, so they receive their food at their father's or employer's table, but eat in their own homes and sleep in their own homes. Tzrichin eruv lechol echad ve'echad. Each of them needs to make an eruv contribution. Since they do not actually eat in that house, they are not considered members of their father's or employer's household, and therefore cannot be included in the contribution of their father or employer. Now, the Tosfot Yom Tov explains the commentary of the Rav. The Rav says, since they do not eat in their father's house, simply getting their food from him is not a strong enough reason to consider them part of his household. Therefore, if one of them forgot and did not join in the eruv, he must abandon his rights to the courtyard before the other people who live there may carry in it. As we learned in Mishnahs 2 and 3, if one of the residents of a courtyard failed to join in the eruv, the courtyard is forbidden for everyone else unless the one who did not the courtyard is forbidden for everyone unless the one who did not join abandons his rights to the courtyard for that Shabbat. And the Mishnah now qualifies this ruling. Ematai, when does this rule that they need to join in the Eruv apply? Bizman shemolichin Eruvan b'makom acher, when the residents of the courtyard bring the Eruv to another home and not to the father's house, which is the food of, we know the food of an Eruv Chatzerot is always placed in one of the houses of the courtyard. If they bring it to another house and not the father's house, that's when this ruling applies. Since in this case, the father needs to join in the Eruv along with the other residents of the courtyard, the sons must also join. But if the Eruv comes to them, meaning if the Eruv for the courtyard is placed in the father's house, which the commentators explain, the person in whose house the Eruv is kept never needs to give to the Eruv, since the purpose of the Eruv is to make it seem as if everyone is living this Shabbat in the house in which it was deposited. The owner of that house, who really does live there, does not need to contribute, as the Gemara says on page 49a in Mesechet Eruvin. O she'en imaen dayurin bechatzer. So he said, if the Eruv comes to them, or if there are no other residents with them in the courtyard besides their father, which the commentaries write, when there are no other residents in the courtyard besides his family, we do not look at the sons as being separate households at all. All the residents are considered to be part of one household. And they do not need to join in an Eruv. Now, in the first case, the sons do not need to contribute to the Eruv because their father does not need to contribute. In the second case, they do not need to contribute because in the absence of the other residents, they and their father are considered one household, and there is never a requirement of an Eruv for one household. In short, the commentaries in the notes summarize, the sons are considered sufficiently separate from their father that his contribution to the Eruv cannot exempt them, but they are enough part of his household that they do not create a need for an Eruv by themselves. And that is in Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.